What up, y'all? It's time for Truth Bomb Tuesday. And the truth bomb today is likely going to be an unpopular one, but it needs to be said. And that truth bomb is that I'm sorry is selfish and thank you is humble. Now, don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying that you should never apologize. There are things that we do in life that absolutely 100% necessitate an apology. We have to recognize when we've actually done something wrong, apologize for that misstep, and correct it, okay? It has to be followed by a correction, all right? It can't just be, I'm sorry, and then you do it again, and then I'm sorry, and then you do it again. That's not you apologizing. That's you saying, oh, I'm sorry I got caught, okay? If you're honestly, truly apologetic, if you're honestly, truly feeling bad about what you have done, then you apologize and then you address it with action so that that thing doesn't happen again, okay? But what I find is a lot of the time, and I'm not even gonna say most of the time, but there is a portion of time where people are apologizing for things that they do not need to apologize for. And I bet you've done this, because I know I have. Where you say, I'm sorry for something that doesn't really necessitate an apology. You're just saying, I'm sorry to either avoid confrontation or because there's this little thing rolling around in the back of your head that tells you that if you say, I'm sorry for this, then people are gonna think that you're just this really humble person. When in reality, what you're trying to do is draw attention to yourself. It's like this backdoor, like underhanded, like compliment to yourself of, oh, I'm more humble than you. And that's the opposite of the definition of humility. In fact, this is why I think thank you is more humble than I'm sorry. And here's why. The essence of humility is not lowering yourself below somebody else. It's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Okay? Now, I don't know where that quote came from, but it has stuck with me for a very long time. Okay? Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. So, if there's a situation where I feel like my automatic response is to say, I'm sorry, like I'm a few minutes late to a meeting. I'm sorry, I'm so late, and then excuse why I was late. Instead, when you come into that meeting, you look at that person and say, hey, thank you so much for being patient with me. Can we get started? That's it. And what you've done is you've now handed the focus to that other person saying, hey, thank you for being an awesome human being. And then you've left it at that. You don't have this like self-deprecating, like look at me kind of situation where like you say, oh, I'm sorry I was so late. And then they're like, oh, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And it creates this thing where it's centered on you. Instead, you say, hey, thank you for your patience. Thank you for reminding me to do that. Thank you for correcting me in that statement. Thank you for insert whatever it is. And all these little things are just that. They're little. They're things that don't necessarily mean that you need to apologize, but there's something there that needs to be acknowledged, and that acknowledgement needs to be of that other person's graciousness. So out of humility, instead of focusing on me, I'm gonna focus on them in that moment, right? So my example from my own personal life is I run a business, okay? Now, yes, it's a gym. I teach people to work out. I teach fitness classes. I do personal training. I teach nutrition, things like that, okay? But that means I've got clients that I have to manage. I've got classes I have to manage. I have coaches that I have to manage. And oh, by the way, I'm still also responsible for growing the business so that those coaches continue to make money, so that they continue to develop and get better. And if they get better, my clients get better. So the more I grow my business, the more that happens, which means I'm responsible for all the things that have to happen to run a business. And me personally, I love being a husband and a father. I love that more than anything. And so I try to commit as much time as I can to that as well, which means that I slip up a lot, okay? I forget that I was gonna fix my son's toy. I forget that I was gonna listen to my daughter's story. I forget that I was gonna spend time with my wife just talking about life. I forget that I sent an email to somebody and they emailed me back saying, hey, I need an answer by this date. And then I forget. It just gets buried in email. Instead of saying, oh man, I'm so sorry, I totally spaced this. Oh man, I'm so sorry, I didn't get this done. Instead, in that moment, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recognize their graciousness. I'm gonna say, hey, thank you for reminding me to get this done. Thank you for your patience in this moment with me. I've forgotten to do this. Here it is. And we get it done, and we get it handled. And I take the focus off of me, and I hand it back to you, saying, thank you for being awesome in this situation. And you know what that does? It allows me to take responsibility in that moment, and it recognizes them for remembering and being awesome in that moment. It recognizes them in that moment. And you know what that does? It makes us both better. If I apologize in those moments, if I say, oh, I'm so sorry, I totally forgot, it's me, and then they have to extend me grace, which is, they've already done that. So why should they extend it again? So in those moments, instead of being selfish, be humble. Humble yourself enough to recognize the other person in this situation or the other party in this situation. The truth bomb is most of our I'm sorries are actually selfish. But the truth bomb that's going to make us grow is that saying thank you to the other person is actually the most humble thing you can do. And in that moment, you and anybody else involved in that situation is going to get better. That's the truth bomb, folks. Go blow up life. Boom.